Chapter 1. Long, long ago, in a land kissed by the sun, where the very air shimmered with ancient stories and the tips of magnificent pyramids seemed to tickle the sky, there lived a creature as small and gentle as a whisper of breeze. This was little Pip, a fennec fox, whose fur was the soft, warm color of the desert sand at noon, and whose ears were wonderfully, remarkably big. So big, in fact, that they seemed to listen to secrets that even the wind hadn't yet shared. Little Pip wasn't a fox who chased much or fussed often. Oh no. His greatest joy, his most cherished adventure, began each day as the sun, a fiery orb of orange and gold, began its slow, sleepy descent towards the edge of the world. This was his special time. As the golden light softened into a tender blush, little Pip would embark on his quiet quest to find the most perfect, most peaceful spot along the meandering banks of the great river Nile. And what a river it was! The Nile, the lifeblood of that ancient land, flowed with a steady, reassuring pulse, a true giant among rivers, yet somehow, to little Pip, it always felt like a kind old friend, humming a lullaby just for him. He knew exactly where to go. A secluded nook nestled among the tall, slender papyrus reeds that lined the river's edge, their green stalks swaying ever so gently in the cooling air. The sand there was particularly soft, still holding the day's warmth like a comforting secret, and a smooth, sun-baked stone offered a perfect headrest for a small fennec fox who loved to observe. With a contented sigh, little Pip would curl himself into a small, sandy ball, his nose twitching ever so slightly, like a tiny radar dish tuning into the whispers of the world. His big, luminous eyes, the color of polished amber, would gaze out over the vast, calm waters. This was his favorite time, truly. The bustling, busy sounds of the day, the distant cries of vendors in the villages, the creak of wooden boats, the playful chirps of sparrows, all began to soften and fade, melting into the hush of twilight. It was as if the whole world took a deep breath and then slowly, gently, let it out. As dusk deepened, painting the sky in ever richer shades, little Pip felt a deep peace unfurl within him, like a warm, soft blanket spreading from his little paws all the way to the very tips of his wonderfully big ears. The sky, which had been a vibrant orange, now blushed into a delicate rose, then deepened into a regal lavender, streaked with surprising touches of softest peach and deepest indigo. It was a masterpiece painted just for him, changing minute by magical minute. The water below, usually a bustling thoroughfare for boats and birds, now became a mirror, reflecting the sky's grand performance with breathtaking clarity. The air, too, transformed. The sharp heat of the desert day gave way to a delicious coolness, carrying with it new, soft sounds. Little Pip's magnificent ears, designed to hear the tiniest rustle of a beetle's wing across miles of sand, now picked up the delicate symphony of the riverside. First, there was the gentle rustle of the tall papyrus reeds right beside him. "Shh," they whispered, a rhythmic, soothing sound, like ancient storytellers sharing secrets that had been passed down through generations of reeds. Pip imagined they were sharing tales of pharaohs and queens, of hippos splashing playfully, and of the very first sunbeams that ever touched the Nile's surface. These were the true whispers of dusk. Then, from far, far away, carried on the soft breeze that skimmed over the water, little Pip caught the faint melodic sound of a farmer humming. It was a simple, repetitive tune, a lullaby as old as the river itself, sung not to a child, but to his sleepy crops perhaps, or to the very earth itself, thanking it for its bounty. This sound, distant yet so clear, brought a warm, comforting feeling to Pip's little heart. It was a sound of gentle work ending, of a day well spent, of a peaceful evening settling in. He could almost smell the rich, dark soil that the farmer tended, the scent of earth and life mingling with the damp sweetness of the river. Above, as the last fiery streaks of the sun finally dipped below the horizon, the first twinkling stars began to prick the deepening blue of the sky. One by one, like tiny diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth, they appeared, brave and bright. And then, as if by magic, they doubled. For in the calm, shimmering water below, each star found its perfect reflection, creating a dazzling, inverted sky. The river, once a pathway of water, now looked like a pathway to the heavens themselves, a sparkling, swirling galaxy stretching out before little Pip's wondering eyes. He felt as if he could reach out and pluck a star from the water, or perhaps, if he was very brave, step right onto that starry path and walk among the constellations. Sometimes, if he looked very, very closely, letting his imagination take flight like a soaring falcon, little Pip imagined he could see the faintest, most shimmering outline of Ra's sunboat. In the ancient stories, Ra, the great sun god, sailed his magnificent boat across the sky each day, bringing light and warmth to the world, and then at night he would sail through the underworld, fighting darkness, only to emerge victorious again at dawn. To little Pip, in that quiet moment between day and night, the faint starlight seemed to illuminate Ra's boat, slow and majestic, gliding across the darkening sky, gently nudging the stars into their proper places, preparing the world for the deep slumber of night. It was a beautiful, comforting thought, knowing that even the sun god had his nightly duties, keeping the universe in perfect, peaceful order. Little Pip wasn't just watching with his big bright eyes, he was feeling the quiet rhythm of the Nile deep in his very bones. It was a feeling of profound peace, a warmth that spread from his soft, sandy paws, up his slender legs, through his twitching nose, and right to the tip of his tail. It was the feeling of belonging, of being perfectly aligned with the natural world, of understanding, without words, the deep, ancient heartbeat of the earth. He breathed in the cool, clean air, scented with river water and the faint, sweet perfume of night-blooming flowers. Every fiber of his small fennec fox body resonated with the stillness, with the gentle unfolding of evening. And so, dear little one, this story is about little Pip's gentle journey. But it's not a journey of going far across vast lands, or even of traveling down the long, winding river. Oh no. It is a journey of a different kind, a journey of looking closely and listening quietly. It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, the magic in the everyday, the gentle wonders, and the life-giving spirit that flow not just with the great River Nile, but through every quiet moment we choose to observe. It reminds us of the quiet joy, the deep contentment that comes from truly connecting with the beautiful world around us, just like little Pip did, there by the river, under the whispering dusk. And with that, little Pip would close his luminous eyes, his big ears still listening, ready for whatever gentle dreams the Nile would hum for him through the quiet, starry night. A soft, continuous symphony, a delicate chorus that seemed to hum just for him. Swish, swish, rustle, rustle, they whispered, a sound like silk brushing against silk, like 100 tiny hands gently clapping, like the very breath of the evening wind sighing through a secret garden. It was a sound that was both soothing and utterly captivating. Happy tilted his head, his large, velvety ears swiveling forward, trying to catch every nuance of the gentle murmur. His brow, usually smooth and placid, wrinkled ever so slightly in an expression of puzzled intrigue. Were the reeds talking to each other? Were they sharing the stories of the day, the secrets of the fish that swam beneath them, or the birds that nested in their leafy embrace? He imagined them exchanging ancient tales of the Nile, of seasons come and gone, of little river creatures seeking shelter within their embrace. He could almost hear them chuckling softly, sharing whispered jokes about the busy beetles or the sleepy frogs. It was a sound that spoke of comfort, of presence, and of a quiet, abiding peace. He took a slow, deliberate step closer, his broad snout almost brushing the lowest fronds of the reeds. The sound grew a little louder, a little clearer, enveloping him in its gentle embrace. Swish, swish, rustle, rustle. He tried to mimic it, blowing a soft, watery breath through his nostrils, but his sound was a plummy thwump compared to the reed's ethereal whispers. He chuckled to himself, a low, rumbling sound deep in his chest, delighted by the simple mystery of it all. Just as Happy was entirely absorbed in the papyrus's murmuring symphony, another sound began to drift on the cool, gathering evening air. This sound was different. It wasn't the rustle of leaves or the splash of water. It was a low, melodic hum, a human voice, carried from far off, across the fertile fields that stretched like a verdant carpet away from the river's edge. It was a sound unlike any Happy had ever heard before, a tune that rose and fell like the gentle current of the Nile itself, comforting and steady. Happy turned his head slowly, following the sound with his ears, his curious eyes scanning the landscape. In the distance, where the rich, dark soil met the fading light of the sky, he could just make out a silhouette. It was a tall, lean figure, stooped slightly, but not with weariness. This was the silhouette of a farmer, a man of the earth, who had spent his day tending to the thirsty crops that grew so abundantly in the Nile's life-giving embrace. The farmer wasn't working loudly, rushing to finish a task before darkness truly settled. No, his movements were slow and deliberate, a gentle swaying, and the sound that drifted from him was not a shout or a call, but a quiet, soothing lullaby. He was singing to his young crops, a tender, low tune, as if tucking them into their beds for the night, wishing them sweet dreams and strong growth. Happy watched, utterly fascinated, as the farmer moved among his fields, his voice a balm on the evening air, a lullaby for the sprouting seeds and the ripening stalks. He turned to his wise mama hippo, who had been watching his quiet exploration with a patient, knowing smile. Her immense body, a mountain of gentle strength, settled comfortably on the soft riverbank, radiating warmth and safety. Happy nudged her gently with his snout, a soft, inquisitive unfoff escaping his lips. His large eyes, reflecting the last of the sky's purple glow, looked up at her, full of a quiet, wondering question. "Why would a farmer sing to his plants, Mama?" His soft gaze seemed to ask, more eloquently than any words. "Do the plants like to hear stories too? Do they get sleepy like I do?" Mama Hippo, her ancient eyes twinkling with a deep understanding, lowered her massive head and nuzzled her little one gently. Her rough, warm skin brushed against his, a comforting sensation that always made Happy feel safe and loved. "That, my little one," she rumbled, her voice a deep, reassuring murmur that vibrated through Happy's very bones, "is the song of gratitude and hope. It is a song of thanks for the gifts the earth provides and a promise of care for the future." She shifted slightly, drawing Happy closer into the curve of her powerful shoulder. "You see, Happy, the farmer loves his crops just as I love you. He spends his days caring for them, making sure they have enough water, making sure they are safe from the strong winds. And as the day ends, he sings to them, not just with his voice, but with his heart." Mama's gaze drifted across the darkening fields, towards the distant silhouette of the singing farmer. "He sings to help them grow strong and true, to encourage their roots to delve deep into the rich soil, and their leaves to reach up towards the sky, just as our beautiful river nurtures them all." Happy listened, his big eyes fixed on his mama, absorbing her words like a sponge. He understood about nurturing. Mama nurtured him with her milk and her gentle nudges. The sun nurtured the land with its warmth, and the river nurtured everything with its life-giving water. The farmer's song was just another way of nurturing, a way of expressing love and care, even for the tiny, silent plants. It was a beautiful thought, a feeling that settled in his little hippo heart like a warm stone. As Mama spoke, the very first bright stars, like tiny, faraway lamps, began to prickle through the darkening canvas of the sky. One, then two, then a scattering of diamond dust against the deepening indigo. They seemed to pop into existence, silent and majestic, twinkling shyly at first, then growing bolder, their light piercing the velvet darkness. The vast dome above was slowly transforming into a magnificent, glittering blanket, stretching endlessly in every direction. Happy looked up, his head tilted back so far he could feel the cool evening air on his throat. He watched the stars appear one by one, each a pinprick of distant wonder. Then, with a curious instinct, he lowered his gaze, looking down at the calm, mirror-like surface of the Nile. And there they were, not just above him, but below him too. The stars were reflected perfectly in the water, shimmering and dancing like scattered jewels on a dark, liquid silk cloth. It was as if the sky itself had decided to come down and visit the river, bringing its sparkling treasures along. He dipped his snout gently into the cool water, disturbing the reflections for a moment, then pulling back to watch them reform like magic. The gentle ripples caused by his breath made the reflected stars wiggle and sway, like tiny, happy fireflies trapped in the water. It was a breathtaking sight, a secret world unveiled just for him. A deep sense of peace, profound and comforting, began to settle over Happy. It was a feeling warmer than the last rays of sun, softer than the whispers of the reeds, and more melodious than the farmer's gentle song. He understood, in that quiet, reflective moment, how the river, ancient and enduring, flowed with life, how the tall, whispering reeds stood as its patient guardians, how the farmer, with his simple, heartfelt lullaby, tended to the earth's bounty, and how the twinkling stars above watched over them all, silent and eternal. He felt how all these things, seemingly separate, were truly part of one magnificent, gentle rhythm. It was a rhythm of life, of kindness, of taking care and being taken care of. Everything was connected, flowing together just like the ancient, life-giving Nile, in a beautiful, harmonious dance. The river gave life to the plants fed the farmer tended the plants with gratitude, the reeds whispered secrets to the wind, and the stars watched over every single tiny thing, connecting the earth to the sky. Happy snuggled closer to Mama, her warm side a fortress of comfort against the encroaching chill of the night. The swish-swish of the reeds, the faint hum of the farmer's song, the soft splash of a fish in the river, and the silent sparkle of a million stars became his lullaby. He closed his large, gentle eyes, a contented sigh escaping his lips. The world was a vast, wonderful place, full of connections and kindness, and he, little Happy, was a part of it all. And with that peaceful thought, as the stars twinkled above and below, Happy began to drift into a soft, dreamless sleep, ready for whatever gentle journey the new day would bring. Chapter 2. As the sun, a colossal orb of molten gold and liquid fire, began its slow, majestic descent towards the western desert's edge, the ancient river Nile shimmered with the last lingering kisses of its light. The sky, a vast canvas above, started to paint itself in the most delicate and dreamlike hues. First, a whisper of apricot and peach, then melting into soft mauves and deep violets, like a bruise of beauty spreading across the heavens. Little Happy the baby hippo, his skin still damp from his earlier frolics in the cool river waters, moved with a leisurely grace along the bank. His enormous, gentle eyes, pools of soft, curious wonder that had absorbed so much of the world's marvels since the dawn of his very first adventure, now widened further, drawn by a new, intriguing sight. He had spent the day observing the darting dragonflies, the stately egrets fishing for their supper, and the lazy, drifting lotus flowers, their petals unfurling in quiet greeting to the new day. But now, as the world began to hush itself for the night, a different kind of magic was unfolding. Happy, with a soft, contented sigh that rippled the small puddles by his feet, shifted his gaze towards the towering sentinels of green that lined the water's edge, the papyrus reeds. Oh, they were magnificent, those reeds. Taller than even his wise mama hippo, their slender stalks reached skyward, topped with a burst of feathery plumes, like emerald fireworks frozen in mid-explosion. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a dense, verdant wall guarding the secrets of the river and the marsh beyond. As the last golden kiss of the sun brushed their tips, they seemed to glow with an inner light, casting long, dancing shadows that stretched and swayed like silent dancers on the bank. But it wasn't just their majestic appearance that captured Happy's attention. No, it was the sound they made. Chapter 3. From Chapter 3, the farmer's gentle lullaby as the great golden sun, a glorious orb of warmth and wonder, began its slow, sleepy descent. It dipped its fiery toes into the shimmering waters of the ancient Nile. It painted the vast, winding river in a magnificent mosaic of marvelous colors. First, there was a wash of soft butter-yellow gold, like the warmest honey poured across the water's surface, making everything glow with a gentle, inviting light. Then, as the sun dipped a little lower, streaks of blushing rose and lovely lavender began to swirl and spread, mingling with the gold, turning the river into a grand glowing ribbon of dreams and twilight delight. The very air grew soft and still, whispering secrets of the day's end, carrying the sweet scent of river reeds and damp earth. In a quiet, cozy bend of this beautiful, bountiful river, where the tall papyrus stalks stood sentinel like sleepy sentries, a very special baby hippo named Hattie drifted. She bobbed and swayed ever so gently, her big, round body a contented curve in the cool, comforting current. Hattie had spent her whole long day in the most delightful way a baby hippo knows how, She had been observing the graceful grand egrets, with their snow-white feathers and their long, elegant legs, as they stood perfectly still, like feathered statues, waiting patiently for a tiny fishy snack. She had watched the playful, pearly-scaled fish as they darted and danced just below the surface, sending little ripples of joy across the water. Each ripple was a tiny, winking smile on the river's face. Hattie had even practiced her own special bubble blowing, sending great, glistening, gleeful bubbles up to burst softly on the surface, making little puffing sounds that made her giggle, deep down in her happy hippo heart. But as the day softened into dusk, and the first twinkling stars, like tiny diamonds, began to peek out from the deep blue velvet of the sky, a new, most peculiar and wonderfully melodic sound drifted across the water. It was a sound quite unlike any Hattie had ever heard before. It wasn't the deep, rumbling grumble of her hippo family settling down for the night. It wasn't the chirping chorus of the crickets beginning their nightly serenade. It wasn't the croaky, comforting call of the big bullfrogs from the marshy banks. No, this sound was different. It was a soft, steady, rhythmic humming, a gentle, flowing melody that seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of the twilight air. It was a sound that felt like a warm, cozy blanket wrapping around her heart, making her feel safe and serene. Hattie's heart, which was always full of a natural, noble curiosity, felt a gentle nudge, a soft, sleepy stir within her. Oh, what could that be? She wondered, her big, beautiful brown eyes widening just a tiny bit. It sounds like a song, but not one I know. Her curiosity, a kind and quiet commander, led her to slowly, steadily paddle a little closer. She moved with the utmost care, her broad, flat feet pushing through the water with such tender, thoughtful precision that she barely made a ripple. She didn't want to disturb the evening calm, not for all the tasty river weeds in the Nile. She just wanted to find the source of this lovely, lulling tune, wondering what gentle secret the deepening twilight held, what sweet mystery might be unfolding on the distant, dusky bank. Every slow, silent stroke of her paddle brought her closer, her heart beating a soft, steady rhythm, matching the hum that grew ever so slightly clearer with each passing moment. Hattie soon discovered the source of the melodic, marvelous sound. As she rounded a graceful curve in the river, pushing aside a curtain of soft, swaying reeds, she saw him. On the distant bank, bathed in the last lingering glow of the twilight, stood a kind farmer. He was a man of the earth, with hands that looked strong and steady, but also gentle and wise, like the roots of an old tree. His silhouette, tall and peaceful, was outlined softly against the fading, fiery light of the setting sun. He wasn't speaking loudly, not in booming shouts or bustling commands, nor was he tending to his fields with hurried haste, rushing about as some folks might do. Oh no, not this farmer. This kind man moved slowly, with a quiet, careful grace, among his newly sprouted crops. These tiny, tender green shoots, like hopeful emerald jewels, were just beginning to reach their delicate leaves towards the benevolent sky. And from his lips, as he moved with such marvelous, methodical movements, came the softest, most loving lullaby. It wasn't a loud song meant for shouting or dancing. It was a soft, smooth, murmuring melody, like the gentle gurgle of a quiet stream or the whisper of the softest breeze through the rustling river reeds. He bent low with a tender thoughtfulness, gently touching each tiny green shoot. His weathered fingers, strong from a lifetime of caring for the land, brushed over the nascent leaves with the lightest, most respectful touch, as if each little plant were a precious, sleeping baby. And as he touched them, he didn't just touch them with his hands. Oh no, he touched them with his heart. He was singing to his plants, truly and tenderly. He whispered words of encouragement, sweet and warm, like the sun on a perfect day. "Grow strong, my little friends," he murmured, his voice a soft, soothing balm. "Grow tall and proud. Drink deep, deep from the Nile's sweet, nurturing water." He asked them, in his hushed, hopeful tones, to flourish with vibrant life, nurtured by the very essence of the great, gracious Nile. It was a song filled not with loud boasts or boisterous calls, but with quiet, calm hope and the deepest, dearest devotion. It was a song, Hattie realized, of profound connection, a living link between the rich, giving earth, the life-giving, flowing water, and the farmer's caring, compassionate hands. It was a song of love, pure and simple, sung from a heart full of true and tender care. A deep, quiet sense of wondrous awe filled Hattie's heart as she watched this tender, touching scene unfold. She floated perfectly still, her big, round body barely moving, her breath held softly, lest she break the magical moment. Her beautiful brown eyes, usually so full of playful mischief, were wide with a new, gentle understanding. In that precious, peaceful moment, as the farmer's lullaby drifted over her, soft as a butterfly's wing, Hattie understood something truly profound, something much, much bigger than all the joyful splashes she loved to make. She understood then that the Nile wasn't just a place for swimming and splashing and playful paddling. It wasn't just a grand playground for hippos and fish and crocodiles. And it wasn't just a boundless source of water to drink from or to cool one's happy hippo hide. Oh no, the Nile was so much more. It was a magnificent giver of life, yes, in every single way. It gave life to the tiny fish, and the graceful egrets, and the strong, sturdy reeds. It gave life to the farmer's hopeful little plants, helping them grow green and grand. But more than that, Hattie realized, it also flowed through the hearts of every single creature, big and small, near and far. It flowed through the farmer's kind, caring heart, inspiring his gentle song. It flowed through her own curious, compassionate heart, helping her to understand. The river's gentle current, she mused, was like a quiet, comforting feeling that nurtured kindness and connection everywhere it touched. The farmer's lullaby, carried on the soft, sleepy evening breeze, was a beautiful, tender reminder. It hummed a sweet truth to Hattie, a truth that settled deep in her soul, warm and wonderful, like a sunbeam. It whispered that warmth and care flowed through everything, through the earth and the water, through the plants and the people, and even through the hippos. Everything was connected, she saw, in a gentle, rhythmic dance, just like the steady, comforting flow of the river itself, which never hurried, but always found its way, connecting all things in its beautiful, benevolent journey. As the last rays of sunlight faded into the deep, dark indigo of the night sky, and the stars shone brighter, Hattie felt a warmth spread through her. It was the warmth of knowing, of understanding the quiet, tender connections that bind the world together, all sung into being by a farmer's gentle lullaby and the steady, loving heartbeat of the Nile. She drifted slowly back to her family, a new, peaceful understanding glowing in her heart, ready to dream sweet dreams of green plants, gentle songs, and the ever-flowing kindness of the great wide river. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. The Quiet Offering. As the gentle dusk began its slow, deliberate descent over the mighty Nile once more, the sky above transformed into a breathtaking masterpiece. It swirled with shades of softest rose and tenderest lavender, like a painter's finest palettes spilled across the heavens. Hints of fiery orange kissed the horizon where the sun had just dipped below the distant palms, leaving behind trails of liquid gold that shimmered on the water's surface. The air, which had been warm and bustling with the day's activities, now grew cool and still, carrying only the faintest whispers of the breeze through the reeds along the riverbanks. Our sweet little Happy, the baby hippo with eyes as large and kind as polished river stones, found himself in his very favorite spot. He was nestled comfortably in a shallow cove, where the ancient water, cool and soothing as silk, lapped gently against his chin. It felt like a loving lullaby, rocking him ever so slightly from side to side. He loved this quiet time, when the world seemed to settle down and take a deep, contented breath. As he watched, the first twinkling stars began to prickle through the fading light, one by one, then two by two, until the vast expanse above was dusted with countless tiny diamonds. They looked just like the most precious jewels scattered across a grand velvet cloth, dark and deep and endless. And what was even more wonderful, these sparkling stars perfectly mirrored themselves in the calm, deep water of the Nile below, stretching out like another, equally beautiful sky beneath him. It felt like the world was holding its breath, just for him. Tonight, however, something else, something very gentle and very subtle, caught Happy's curious eye. Far in the distance, a small, handcrafted papyrus boat began to glide into view. It moved with such grace and quietude that it barely disturbed the water's surface, leaving hardly a ripple in its wake. It was different from the noisy, bustling boats Happy sometimes saw during the daytime, the ones with fishermen calling out, or merchants loaded with goods, or families chatting and laughing loudly as they went about their busy lives. This boat was quiet, almost reverent. Its passengers, too, seemed to hold a special kind of stillness. Happy, who was always observing the world with such thoughtful wonder, settled in even deeper. He submerged a little, just enough so that only his large, curious eyes and the very tip of his nose peeked out from the surface. He watched with a quiet fascination, feeling a tiny flutter of curiosity about these two-legged creatures who also shared his beloved river. He sometimes wondered what they did all day, these humans, with their clever hands and their busy tools. As the papyrus boat drifted closer, Happy could make out its occupants more clearly. It was a mother and her child. The mother sat at the stern, guiding the boat with a long, slender pole, her movements slow and deliberate, as graceful as a willow branch swaying in the breeze. The child, small and bright-eyed, sat quietly in the bow, their small hands resting patiently on their knees. Happy noticed something immediately. They didn't have any fishing nets draped over the sides, nor any spears for hunting, nor even large baskets to gather the tall, swaying reeds that grew so abundantly along the riverbanks. They weren't busy in the way most humans were. They seemed to be on a different kind of errand entirely. Then, Happy watched as the child, guided by the mother's gentle, encouraging hand, reached for something inside the boat. It was a small, round clay pot, smooth and earthy, with a wide opening. With the most exquisite care, the child slowly, ever so slowly, dipped the pot into the river's flowing water. They didn't just scoop the water up quickly, as if in a hurry to quench a thirst. Oh no, this was different. Every movement was thoughtful, respectful. The child held the pot perfectly steady, allowing the cool, clear water to flow into its belly as if collecting sunshine itself. It was done with the greatest reverence, as if the water they collected was the most precious treasure in the world. Happy had never seen anyone treat the river water with such tenderness. Once the pot was full, the child gently lifted it out, not a single drop spilling, and placed it carefully back into the boat. Then, the mother produced something else from a small, woven basket beside her. Happy saw a handful of vibrant lotus petals. They were a breathtaking mix of colors, softest pinks, purest whites, and hints of deep, rich purple at their tips. They looked like fallen jewels, still glistening with the dew of the evening. With a soft, almost inaudible sigh, the mother took a few petals and, one by one, she and the child softly tossed them onto the surface of the river. They didn't splash or throw them carelessly. Instead, they let them go, as if releasing tiny boats of beauty onto the vast, shimmering expanse. Happy watched as the petals drifted downstream, dancing on the gentle current, carried away by the river's slow, steady embrace. It was a quiet gesture, a silent offering, a moment of profound gratitude to the mighty Nile. There was no sound, no spoken words, just the gentle sprinkle of petals and the softest, most peaceful expressions on their faces. Happy, who had sometimes wondered about the busy humans and their endless activities, felt a peculiar warmth begin to spread through him. It started deep inside his big hippo heart and spread outwards, making him feel happy and content from the tip of his ears to the pads of his great feet. He realized, with a sudden, heartwarming clarity, that just as he and his family found solace and sustenance in the river, its cool waters for swimming, its lush grasses for eating, its quiet coves for resting, so too did these gentle people, and they, like him, loved the river deeply. But more than that, they understood something important. They weren't just taking from the river, they were giving back. They were offering their own quiet thanks, becoming a part of the river's great loving rhythm. It was a beautiful, unspoken conversation, Happy understood now, a silent pledge between the land, the water, and all the life that lived beside it and within it. The river gave, and they gave back. The river embraced, and they returned the embrace. This simple, heartfelt act of giving back to the river resonated deeply with Happy. It was a truth he felt in his very bones. He understood that the Nile wasn't just a place of food and play. It was a generous friend to everyone who lived along its banks, animals and people alike. It gave tirelessly day after day, season after season, and tonight he had seen how some of its many friends showed their love in return. He saw that kindness wasn't just in grand gestures, or loud shouts of joy, or big splashing plays. Sometimes, Kindness was in the quietest moments of appreciation and connection, in a gentle dip of a pot or the soft scattering of a flower petal. As the crescent moon, thin and bright like a knowing smile, began its slow, majestic ascent into the night sky, casting a soft, silvery glow over the water. Happy felt a sense of belonging far greater than he had ever felt before. He realized that his gentle journey along the Nile was not one he took alone. It was shared by many, by the great crocodiles basking on the banks, by the tiny fish darting in the shallows, by the majestic birds soaring overhead, and yes, by these quiet humans too. All of them, every single one, were bound by the river's enduring love, by its ancient rhythm, and by its boundless generosity. They were all part of the big, warm family of the Nile. With a deep, contented sigh, the happiest sigh a baby hippo could ever sigh, Happy submerged just a little more. The river's cool embrace, usually just a comforting sensation, now felt like the warmest, most understanding hug. It felt full of the wisdom of shared life, of quiet gratitude, and of the gentle, unspoken language that connected every living creature to the generous heart of the world. And as the moon climbed higher, Happy drifted, a happy little hippo, surrounded by the quiet magic of the Nile. Chapter 5. From Chapter 5. The gentle helping paw, the late afternoon sun, a benevolent golden orb, dipped lower towards the western horizon, painting the sky above the ancient Nile in hues of soft apricot and rose. A gentle, balmy breeze, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming water lilies, whispered through the tall, slender papyrus reeds that lined the riverbank. It was here, nestled amongst the whispering green stalks, that Fennec the desert fox found himself, his large, sensitive ears twitching, soaking in the symphony of the river. Fennec had spent his morning, as he often did, observing. He had watched the hard-working farmers, their movements rhythmic and unhurried, guide the life-giving water from the main river into their carefully dug irrigation channels. He'd seen how a tiny dam of mud, a precisely placed stone, or a gentle sweep of a hand could redirect a whole stream, bringing nourishment to thirsty crops. And he'd watched the river itself, not a thundering torrent, but a patient, persistent current, always finding its way, always nurturing. These were lessons Fennec had absorbed, not with words, but with his keen eyes and his quiet, thoughtful heart. He understood now, deep in his Fennec soul, that even the grandest things, like the mighty Nile, were made up of countless small, gentle movements, and that every little bit of care contributed to the bigger picture. It was a wonderful, comforting thought, a quiet hum in his chest. As the shadows lengthened, stretching like sleepy cats across the sandy bank, Fennec decided to stretch his own slender legs. He padded softly, his paws making no sound on the warm earth, his nose twitching, taking in the familiar, comforting smells of his riverside home. That's when he noticed it. Just a little way upstream, a small cluster of his beloved papyrus reeds, usually so vibrant and proud, looked a little listless. Their emerald stalks, instead of standing tall and reaching for the sun, drooped ever so slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible tinge of brown creeping into their tips. Fennec tilted his head, his brow furrowing with gentle concern. He thought, though no sound escaped his muzzle. They look thirsty. He remembered the farmers and their clever channels. Following his instinct, Fennec padded closer, his whiskers brushing against the dry soil near the base of the sad-looking reeds. He peered down, his sharp eyes scanning the ground, and there it was, a tiny, almost invisible ridge of dried mud and a few displaced pebbles, barely bigger than his paw, blocking the shallowest, faintest trickle of water from reaching this particular patch. The water, so eager to nourish, was being subtly but effectively diverted around them. Fennec hesitated for a moment. He was just a small fox. What could he do? But then he remembered the farmer's gentle mud dams, the river's persistent flow. Even a little nudge could make a difference. His heart warmed with a spark of quiet determination. He lowered his head, his sensitive muzzle almost touching the dry earth. With his slender, surprisingly strong front paws, Fennec began his gentle work. He didn't dig, he didn't scrape wildly. Instead, with infinite care, he nudged, one pebble, then another. He used his nose to gently push aside a tiny clump of dried mud. It was painstaking work, each movement deliberate, focused. He imagined the water wanting to flow, wanting to reach these thirsty reeds. He was simply helping it on its way. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a new path began to form. A tiny, almost invisible stream, no wider than his smallest toe, began to whisper through the newly cleared channel. It wasn't much, just a thread of water, but Fennec knew from watching the river that even a thread could weave a big difference. He watched as the first few drops seeped into the dry earth around the roots of the papyrus. A quiet sigh of satisfaction bloomed in his chest, but Fennec's work wasn't quite done. As he lifted his head, stretching his neck, his gaze drifted further down the riverbank. There, bathed in the soft glow of the descending sun, was a small, smooth stretch of sun-dappled sand, a perfect spot for sunbathing. But something was amiss. A family of river turtles, a large mother with 3 smaller, curious youngsters, were circling impatiently near the edges of the sunlit patch. They clearly wanted to climb out and warm their ancient shells, but their path was blocked. An old, gnarled branch, bleached white by the sun and smoothed by past floods, lay right in the middle of their desired sunning spot. It wasn't huge, but it was just big enough, and just heavy enough, to be an obstacle for the slow-moving, short-legged turtles. Fennec watched as the mother turtle stretched her leathery neck, her wise eyes blinking slowly at the offending branch. She nudged it tentatively with her snout, but it wouldn't budge. The youngsters, in their playful impatience, tried to clamber over it, tumbling back into the shallow water with soft splashes. Fennec felt a familiar pang of sympathy. He remembered how good it felt to stretch out in the sun after a cool swim. This was another opportunity for a gentle helping paw. He trotted over, his movements soft and deliberate. The turtles, seeing him approach, pulled their heads and limbs into their shells, becoming silent, unmoving stones. Fennec respected their caution. He didn't rush, didn't make any sudden moves. He simply approached the branch, assessing its weight and shape. It was heavier than the pebbles, certainly, but Fennec was clever. He didn't try to lift it directly. Instead, he found a rough patch on its side, a place where his small, strong teeth could get a good grip. He also noticed a gentle slope in the sand nearby, a natural path away from the sunning spot. With a careful, determined grunt, Fennec bit down gently on the branch. Then, bracing his paws against the sand, he pushed and pulled, not with brute force, but with a series of small, rhythmic shoves and rolls. He nudged it forward, then rotated it a little, then nudged it again. It was slow, patient work. The branch was stubborn, catching on stray roots and lumps of sand. But Fennec kept at it, his focus absolute. He could almost hear the little voice in his head, a voice that sounded a bit like the wise old desert wind saying, "Even the biggest burdens can be moved by many small, gentle efforts. Fennec, patience, little one, patience." And so, he persisted, his muscles tensing and relaxing, his breath coming in soft puffs. Finally, with one last determined heave, the branch rolled free, coming to rest harmlessly at the edge of the water, far from the sunning spot. Fennec pulled back, panting ever so slightly, his chest warm with a different kind of effort now. He looked at the cleared spot, then back at the turtles, who were still mostly hidden within their shells. He waited, quietly, patiently. It didn't take long. Slowly, one by one, the turtles' curious heads emerged. Their eyes, once wary, seemed to soften as they surveyed the now clear, sun-dappled sand. The mother turtle was the first. With a slow, deliberate movement, she hauled herself out of the water onto the warm sand. She stretched her legs, then settled down, blinking contentedly as the sun's warmth permeated her ancient shell. Her youngsters, no longer hesitant, quickly followed suit, scrambling out and nestling close to their mother, their tiny shells gleaming in the golden light. A little turtle sigh, a soft thud, as one of them adjusted its position, drifted on the air. Fennec felt a wave of profound, quiet joy wash over him. He didn't need applause, didn't need thanks. The sight of the happy turtles, the way the mother's shell seemed to glow with contentment, was reward enough. He glanced back at the papyrus reeds. Already, almost as if by magic, their stalks seemed a little less droopy, a faint, renewed greenness seeming to pulse within them. The tiny trickle of water had found its way, bringing life back. This was his deep-down awakening. He realized that the powerful, life-giving essence of the Nile wasn't just something to be observed from afar, a grand spectacle of nature. It was something that everyone, even a small fox with gentle paws and a kind heart, could contribute to. The farmers helped, the river helped, and now Fennec knew he could help too. He wasn't just a part of the Nile, he was a contributor to its rhythm, its flow, its very life. This feeling of connection, of shared well-being, filled him with a warmth that spread from his chest all the way to the tips of his sensitive ears. As the first stars began to shimmer like scattered diamonds in the deepening twilight sky, Fennec lay by the riverbank, his body relaxed, his mind profoundly peaceful. The last sliver of the sun melted away, leaving behind a sky of deep indigo, dotted with the emerging lights of distant galaxies. He listened to the gentle, rhythmic lapping of the water against the shore, a lullaby whispered by the ancient river. The distant, lonely hoot of an owl echoed softly from the palm groves, and from the cluster of papyrus reeds, now standing a little taller, a little greener, came the soft rustling murmur of their leaves, a quiet song of renewed life. His heart felt full, not just with the endless wonder he felt for the Nile's grandeur, but with the quiet, deep satisfaction of having given a little bit of himself to help its rhythm flow, to nurture a small corner of its vast, gentle embrace. He understood now that kindness, like the river itself, always found a way to nurture, to connect, and to make the world a better, more flourishing place, one gentle paw, one thoughtful nudge at a time. And as sleep, soft as a desert breeze, began to claim him, Fennec knew that this feeling, this profound peace, was the most precious treasure of all. The river, the reeds, the turtles, and Fennec, all connected, all living in gentle harmony, under the silent, watchful gaze of the first twinkling stars. Chapter 6 and Chapter 6. A lullaby of stars and streams. As the very last soft whisper of twilight finally faded from the sky, taking with it the last lingering blush of rose and the pale, hopeful gold, a quiet darkness began to unfurl itself over the ancient land of Egypt. The sun, a tireless traveler, had finally dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a magnificent canvas of deep, deep indigo. And there, beside a dense, rustling cluster of tall, whispering papyrus reeds, little Fennec, our curious desert fox with his wonderfully large ears, settled himself into a spot that felt just right. It was a cozy nook, cushioned by soft sand and sheltered by the gentle sway of the reeds, a perfect place for a gentle creature to rest. He looked out, his bright, observant eyes taking in the grand, quiet transformation of the world around him. The mighty Nile, that life-giving river he had followed with such quiet dedication, was now no longer a bright, shimmering ribbon of blue and green, reflecting the busy sky of day. Oh no, dear friends, it had become something else entirely. It was a deep, mysterious river of silver, a quiet mirror reflecting the first bright, twinkling stars that had begun to peek through the inky blanket above. Each tiny pinprick of light in the vast, star-dusted velvet seemed to find its own little twin dancing on the river's slow, steady surface. It was a sight that filled Fennec's little heart with a deep, quiet wonder, a feeling that settled in him like the gentle dust settling after a long, sunny day. Fennec's adventurous spirit, the very same spirit that had first nudged him to leave his familiar desert home and begin this gentle journey, had now found a deep, deep contentment. It wasn't the bustling excitement of new discoveries anymore, but a profound sense of peaceful belonging. He had seen so many things, learned so many quiet lessons, and now, as the night truly embraced the land, all those precious observations began to settle within him, much like the gentle coolness that spread across the desert floor after the sun's warmth had gone. He remembered them, each one, not in a rushed, busy way, but slowly, softly, like turning the pages of a beloved storybook. He remembered the soft, rhythmic rustle of the papyrus reeds, a sound he had learned to associate with safety in the gentle passing of the breeze. It was a sound like a quiet secret, whispered by the wind, a gentle shh that had accompanied him on so many parts of his journey. He remembered, too, the distant, comforting lullaby of the farmer. Yes, that kind human voice, singing softly to his animals as the sun dipped low. It wasn't a song Fennec understood with his mind, but with his heart. It was a sound of gentle work, of care, of the quiet rhythm of human life alongside the river's flow. It had made him feel safe, even though he was small and the farmer was so very large. It was a sound that told him, in its own gentle way, that all was well in this part of the world. And oh, he remembered the quiet dignity of the hippos, those magnificent, large creatures, so solid and serene as they rested in the cooling waters. They didn't chase or bother, they simply were, strong and calm, a testament to the river's ancient power. Their gentle snorts and deep sighs had been another part of the Nile's own quiet song, a song of life living peacefully together. All these precious moments, all the sights and sounds and feelings that had filled his day, the sun's warm kiss, the sand's soft give, the splash of a fish, the distant cry of a desert bird, now settled into a warm, peaceful feeling deep within his heart. It was a feeling of deep satisfaction, of a journey well traveled, a day well spent. The initial wonder of his journey, that eager curiosity that had pulled him forward, had transformed into something even deeper, something more profound. It had become a true sense of belonging, a quiet understanding of the intricate, beautiful world around him, a world he was now a gentle part of. Little Fennec, feeling so wonderfully safe and settled, closed his eyes for a long, peaceful moment. He didn't just see the stars now, or hear the river. He felt the steady, deep thrum of the Nile, a timeless heartbeat beneath those ancient, watchful stars. It wasn't a loud thump, 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 but a soft, constant vibration, a deep, gentle hum that seemed to resonate through the very sand beneath him, through the papyrus reeds, and right into his own little Fennec paws. It was the rhythm of the world itself, patient and eternal. And as he felt that deep, steady thrum, a deep, gentle awakening happened within him. It wasn't a sudden, startling burst, like lightning across the sky. Oh no, dear ones. It was a quiet unfurling, like a delicate flower slowly opening its petals to the morning sun. It was an understanding, soft and true, that life, just like this grand, ancient river, flows in its own beautiful, patient rhythm. Sometimes it rushes, sometimes it slows, sometimes it curves and bends, but it always, always flows onward. And in that gentle, unhurried flow, there is a deep, quiet wisdom. He understood in that peaceful moment that the human connection wasn't about talking or playing with the tall, busy humans. It was something far simpler and yet far grander. It was the quiet, shared sense that all creatures, every living thing along the river, the darting fish, the soaring birds, the patient hippos, the little desert foxes, and even the unseen people living in their far-off villages along the banks, all shared in this vast, ancient peace. They were all part of the river's story, all sustained by its generous heart. He understood, with a feeling of deep warmth spreading through him, that the Nile was not a just water. Oh no, it was so much more. It was a giver of life, nurturing the green fields, quenching thirst, and providing a home for so many creatures. It was a singer of lullabies, with the soft lapping of its waves against the banks, the gentle whispers of the wind through the reeds, and the far-off sounds of night creatures joining in a chorus of calm. And most beautifully of all, Fennec understood that the Nile was a timeless presence, an ancient thread that connected everything around it, from the smallest grain of sand to the highest star, from the oldest tree to the newest sprout. It connected the animals, the plants, and the people, all in one long, gentle, flowing embrace. A profound warmth spread through Fennec, a feeling of kindness and peace that was as vast as the desert sky above him, twinkling with a million silent lights. And it was as deep as the river itself, flowing steadily, holding its quiet secrets. It was a comfort that wrapped around him like his own soft fur, making him feel utterly safe and profoundly loved by the world itself. With a contented sigh, little Fennec curled up tightly in his cozy spot, his soft, sandy-colored fur a warm comfort against the cool night air. His big ears, which had caught so many sounds throughout his day, now rested softly, listening only to the distant, gentle chorus of the night and the steady, soothing sound of his own breathing. He drifted slowly, peacefully, into dreams. Dreams of starlit waters, shimmering and silver, reflecting the quiet glory of the night sky. Dreams of the whispers of the wind through ancient reeds, telling stories only the sleeping earth could hear. Dreams of the gentle flow of the Nile, carrying him on its quiet, peaceful current through the land of slumber. And as little Fennec, Our dear desert fox closed his eyes and dreamed his sweet, gentle dreams. The mighty Nile continued its slow, steady, magnificent flow. It was a guardian of peace, watching over the sleeping world, a timeless protector beneath the watchful eyes of the stars. And so, dear friends, as little Fennec closes his eyes and dreams of his gentle journey along the Nile, it's time for us to say goodnight too. May your own dreams be as sweet and peaceful as the waters of the Nile under the starlit sky. We truly hope this story, this quiet journey with Fennec, brought a little warmth to your heart, just like the gentle sun over the desert brings warmth to the sand. Tell us, if you'd like, where are you listening from tonight? In what quiet corner of the world? And what part of Fennec's gentle journey did you love the most? The part that made your heart feel the most peaceful? We love hearing from you, and we love sharing these quiet moments together. Sweet dreams, everyone. Sleep peacefully, and may your hearts be filled with the gentle, flowing peace of the Nile. Good night. Good night.